So wow, where do I want to start?
You know, I'm gonna reiterate on the first part of the topic, and let's just kind of feel into where that resonates for you, like
Okay.
what surfaces for you.
Mm,
'Cause trusting the process.
mm, okay.
Mhm.
The thing that surfaces most is relationships.
Okay.
And when what I mean by that, or what has been coming up lately, is how I have shown up
Mhm.
and how I want to change it. Not because someone has told me to change it, but because I don't like what how the results of how I've shown up in some relationships. I realize that in some relationships, I show up very transactionally. Um,
Ah.
and not at first transactionally. I think I create a transaction at some point. So I show up in this way of, I want to be of service. I want to be of service. I want to be of service. I just give, right? But
Mhm.
sometimes I give because I know that there is something that I can get in return. And it can look, very authentic on the surface, right? Uh,
Mhm.
it could be, I want to help you with your business. Oh, I have this idea for you, kind of thing. But
Mhm.
in the back end, it's because I know that, maybe I will get some accolades from it, or I may get something from it. And when I realized that I was doing that, I actually have been in a bit of isolation recently because I'm
Mhm.
realizing that there's more times when I'm transactional than not. I don't know if that's the right thing to say. I know there's more times that I'm transactional than I thought I was.
Ooh.
Because I had my breathwork mentor, shout out to Shanila. She was like, sit down and write down like things that I do with conditions and things
Mhm.
that I do without any condition, just because I want to. And I realized
Mhm.
that there's, on both ends, I have a good list of things that I do without conditions and things that I do with conditions. And she was like, when you look at that list of things that you do with conditions that are transactional, it's okay to have things on that list because, there's certain things you need to do for your business or certain things that just need to get done, but they need to be done with intention. If you're intentionally doing them because you're going to get something in return, putting some a ebook or something out because you want to get paid, like that makes sense. um,
Mhm.
but really sitting down and looking at, if I how am I really being of service, and if it's because I want something in return. And sometimes it's out of survival, like I just want somebody to support me. So if I show them that I'm supporting them, then of course they're going to support me. And then when they don't, I feel all types of resentful and upset and like, I'm doing all of this. And it's like, girl, because you didn't do it authentically. No.
But it's a catch-22 though, isn't it? Because because it's a because we're taught it,
Yeah.
right? We're taught it in different schools of thought. So in Christianity, you're taught it's in the scripture, give and it will come back to you, right?
Hmm.
Not only will it come back to you, but it will come back to you pressed down, shaken together, and running over, right? So so you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's taught to you this
Yeah.
the law of giving, and it's also taught in universal law, like law of attraction, law of giving, law of giving and receiving, right? This
Mhm.
reciprocal situation, and it's taught in many different schools of thought, right? So I would call it one of those universal laws where it shows up in so many schools. So it's running in the back of your head. It's
Yeah.
running,
Yeah.
right? And what happens is sometimes you just don't you don't feel like giving. Sometimes you don't feel like giving, number one.
Mhm.
Or, like you said, it's a survival mechanism. We have to eat, we have to pay some bills, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, and then oh, here is the law, right?
Mhm.
So it's a catch 22 because you're like, okay, I know this is the law, and sometimes I don't feel like it, or sometimes I'm in my ego, or sometimes I'm in
Yeah.
desperation energy, or sometimes I'm in whatever have you, but I know this law, so let me go ahead and do this with the expectation. But I love what your mentor said, right? Like being able to be in awareness
Mhm.
and being able to be authentic and genuine
Mhm.
about the intentions and the energy behind.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I really love that. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you what comes up for me when I'm thinking about that. And what comes up for me is masks.
Yes. Yeah. With performing that,
Performing.
and that is something that I feel like I can say overall, Black women, people in general, we perform, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I say Black women because I've done it. I just did a survey about being a strong Black resilient woman, right? And a lot of women were saying they just don't want to seem like they don't know. They don't want people to know that they don't know.
Okay. This is crazy because my son, right? If you know my son is he's a deep thinker. And
Mm,
we've been having this conversation, right?
mm,
He and myself and my husband, we've been having this conversation. And this is also something that we've been taught. And
mhm,
we may not know it, but it is a subtle teaching. It is a societal construct of
mhm.
not wanting to look like we're not smart, like we don't like we need, not
Yeah.
wanting to look like we need help, not wanting to
Mhm,
look like
mhm,
we don't have the answer,
mhm.
right? Or we don't have the strength. And so that hems us up in sitting in class and not asking the question when you don't know what the heck is.
You don't even know what's going on. Okay.
Um,
I like what someone said, being vulnerable. That's what it comes down
hold
to.
on.
It comes
Let me
down
put it up
to
again.
being vulnerable, being open to looking silly. And so that's the space that I'm in right now, being open to how, if someone thinks that I look silly, then I look silly. If they think that this whatever I'm saying is great, then wonderful, right? But being open and vulnerable enough to just either not know
Yes, yes.
or and ask,
And
um,
not have.
and not have, right, so this is a real difficult space for me to be in currently,
Mm-hmm.
but this is
Mm-hmm.
my starting over and how I get to show up in relationships, and even in the moment processing what's happening, why I'm saying what I'm saying. Am I trying to perform for this person? Am I trying to relate to this person so that they don't feel uncomfortable, right? Am I not speaking like, I have prime example. There's a young lady at the cafe that I visit, and I love chatting with her. And she saw that I posted something that was a past event, breathwork event that I did. But
Mm-hmm.
this was months ago. But content,
Mm.
we can use it whenever we want. And
Mm-hmm.
she was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, I saw the event that you did. It looks great, or whatever." And at first, I was just gonna say, "Oh, that's an old event. That happened previously." But I didn't want her to feel like she didn't know what she was talking about. So I was like,
Ah,
"Oh, hey, yeah, I do a lot of events. Which one are you talking about?" Acting like I didn't know what was going on. Like, girl,
right.
it just said that was a previous event. Why is it a big deal for her? I don't want her to not to feel uncomfortable, and then I have to act like I don't know what's going on. Like, no,
Right.
process right
And
now. You don't have to do this. Go ahead.
and what's so it's so perfect because that really is like a microcosm of what happens on the next level and the next level and the next level, right?
Yeah,
It happens sexually.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't like that, or it hurts, or it's triggering me, right? And but I don't want that person to feel uncomfortable, so therefore I suffer. So therefore we're both in deception,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And that builds up, right? And so that space of It's so interesting how the underlying of all of that, of people pleasing and wearing the mask and dimming your light and
Mhm.
meeting the person at their vibration rather than bringing them to your vibration,
Yeah.
right? All of that underneath that is this very delicate place of vulnerability,
Yeah.
of vulnerability in the space of starting over. It's so vulnerable, right?